Hello and welcome. My name's Georgia and I like to read and knit a bit, and this is my first time filming a maybe knitting reading podcast. We'll see how it goes. But what, Georgia? But essentially what I think I will do is, like a knitting podcast, I'll basically just go through my finished objects, what I'm currently working on, so my whips, and also what I am just about to start knitting, I think. And I also then might talk about what I have been reading while I knit, is essentially how I think this will go. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so I think I will start with what I have just finished knitting, which is two things actually, which is quite impressive. I think I just hit the mic, sorry. Which is, I feel like, quite impressive considering, well, it seems impressive considering it's only really February. But the reason I already have like two finished like garments is because I kept procrastinating them. So I started them earlier last year, so in 2025. One of them I started literally in like the summer, and I just never finished them. And so I was just kind of looking at them in the new year, thinking these can't follow me around for like another year. So I got them finished. So I knit, the first thing I finished knitting after a hot minute was a Sonja sweater by Petiteknit. And I'm actually wearing one too. This is my Sonja sweater, which I think I made in 2 strands of double Sunday with some yarn from an abandoned project. So I wasn't planning to make this, but it was a happy accident that I had the exact yarn I needed to make a green jumper, which I really enjoyed wearing in the autumn. I really enjoy wearing when it sounds quite morbid, but I enjoy wearing it when I don't want to wear like a super happy colour, because normally I wear like quite bright colours to make myself feel a bit better in the winter, but sometimes I just want to embrace the kind of grumpy weather. So I wear, grumpier colours. But it is a really lovely green. But I'm digressing. So the Sonja sweater that I finished was actually for my sister. It was for her 21st birthday. She had been asking for a while for a sweater. I had been quite on the fence about making her one because she is quite particular about what she wears, and the material as well. She's quite kind of sensory in that way. And I didn't want to make something for her that she wouldn't wear. So I thought kind of like a oversized sweater would be something that she'd very much get a use out of. So we settled on the Sonja sweater. I did get her permission to make it and her like green light, so I knew it was something that she would quite like to wear. I think this was actually my third time making it. I'd also made a Sonja sweater in kind of like a blue tweed, which was also really nice. So I'm no stranger to the pattern, and yet I still had to frog a couple of times. I had to frog it a couple of times actually, because I think the way the sweater is worked is that you work the back and then pick up the shoulders as usual to work the front and then work in the round. But the bit that always caught me out was that there were some short rows in the sleeves, which do just give it a bit more shaping. So I think it is worth doing, but I was always an autopilot when I started the sleeves. So instead of picking up the stitches for the sleeve and then cutting the yarn to kind of start the short rows up here, I just started working in the round as you normally do with sleeves. So that did catch me out, but it was fine. I caught myself not too late, so it wasn't the end of the world. So the Sonja sweater it's an Aran weight design that you work up in 5mm needles, so it is quite a fast project. I think the gauge is 17 stitches by 24 rows, so again, I think it's a nice break from working DK projects, which I do tend to work a lot of DK projects, so it was quite nice to have something just knit up quite quickly. And the yarn I used was Drops Air, which was my first time using Drops Air. And it is kind of like it's a blown alpaca kind of yarn. So it is 65% alpaca, 28% nylon, and 7% merino. And I think the actual yarn was very soft. It was really nice to touch. And it was great for my sister because she likes really soft fabrics. I think if I made her a sweater that was even like remotely itchy, it would not get worn. So I knew it would be worn, which is good. But the one thing I will say about the yarn is I honestly had such a scarring experience locking the sweater. I don't think I've ever really experienced colours running as much as I did during that time. I think it was crazy. I'll add some pictures in, but honestly, okay, so the colour was crimson red, which was a gorgeous colour, but I feel like when it comes to colour bleeding, I feel like red is just the worst one. And it bled so much that as soon as I put it in the water, it started bleeding, and I was like, okay, well, it's a single colour sweater, so it's okay. It's not like it's going to bleed into any other colours, it'll be fine. But it bled so much that when I went to then dry it, when you do the whole like rolling the towel to get rid of the water, it actually like stained the towel red. So I feel like that was eventful, that was quite stressful. And I do have like a ball or two left because I forgot to account for the fact that my sister likes quite cropped clothes, so I didn't knit as much as the body as I normally would. I think I stopped at maybe 50 centimeters. 50 centimeters, right? Yeah, 50 centimeters rather than say like 60 something, which I think the pattern calls for, which was quite entertaining because I feel like I often knit quite long garments because I'm a long person and I like long clothes. But yeah, but now I don't know if I'd ever use those balls of yarn again because firstly, I don't know what I'd use them for. And secondly, I think I'd just be so worried that it would bleed and I couldn't hold it with any other kind of yarns because I think it would just bleed so much. And I think no matter what I do, I could try and add some like vinegar, or I could add some kind of, what are those like anti-bleeding patches that you can put in to stop colours bleeding. But I think this was just such a serious case of bleeding that I actually don't think those would help, like to the extent that they'd need to. So that was eventful. But my sister loves the sweater, so overall it was worth it. I think I would use Drops Air again, but maybe in a less intense colour. I think I'd maybe go for like a lighter colour, maybe like a cream or something, rather than quite a deep colour. I think maybe it would be kind of red and maybe like navies and blacks that I'd maybe avoid. But yeah, overall, the Sonja sweater was nice. It was fun to knit up. I think the overall like sweater looked really nice, so I don't have too many negative things to say apart from the colour bleeding was quite stressful. And then the next thing I knit was also by Petiteknit. It was the Novice Slipover, which I've got here actually. It was just for me and I'm really happy with it. It was actually, the yarn is from a frogged project which I made in 2024. It was a vest as well, but it was one I bought off Etsy, and I think the kind of stock photo looked so nice. I don't think it was anything to do with the pattern itself. I just kind of made it because I thought it was really cool, but then I just never wore it, and I think it was kind of like a mock neck situation, and I feel like I just found it too hard to kind of style a vest which was also a mock neck because I struggled trying to figure out when I'd actually wear it, because I feel like in weather where I'd think to wear a vest, I wouldn't necessarily want like a high neck. So I think that just kind of threw me a bit. but I really like the yarn and I didn't want to waste it, so I thought, okay, I will frog it and make just a basic vest, because I hadn't actually made a vest at that point apart from the one with the neck. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go back to basics and just make a really simple one, which is how I ended up making the Novice Slipover, despite not being a novice, but it is just a really nice pattern. And yes, so the yarn it's Debbie Bliss Cashmerino. It's Aran weight, and I think it's the shade Willow. I think it's number 76, which is just a really nice kind of like almost sage green. It's hard to describe. It's not quite pistachio, it's a bit paler, but it is a really lovely like spring colour. So it's kind of the perfect, my brain stopped then, the perfect like spring vest. So I'm hoping to get quite a bit of use out of it in the spring. So I'm really excited for that. And I think the pattern calls for DK and lace to make up an Aran weight. Have I got that right? And the gauge is 17 stitches by 25 rows, and it's knit up on 5mm needles again, so it's a nice fast project because you don't have to work the sleeves, and it's also 5mm needles, which is great. So it did work up like really quickly. I didn't spend that much time on this at all, so it was a great way to kind of reuse some yarn that would otherwise just be wasted on a project that I didn't wear. And yeah, I think it's worked really simply. With a lot of Petiteknit patterns, you just work the back and pick up the shoulders, and then again, once you've done all that, you can work the body, and then you work the ribbing afterwards. These sides are just simple ribbing, and I think I bound off with an Italian bind off just to give it a bit more give, and the collar is just a double knit 1x1 ribbing collar. So yeah, overall just a nice simple vest for me to wear, and I feel like it would be a really good kind of office staple for the warmer months, where you can just kind of wear a t-shirt or a shirt and just have the vest over it, and it's just a nice like pop of colour to put a bit of a smile on your face during the dark days. And just generally it's a nice kind of layering piece during the warmer months. And yeah, I feel like you could probably wear it in the summer here in the UK because it never really gets that warm anyway, apart from during heat waves. So yeah. And then the next thing I'm going to do, so those were the two things that I think you were right before. Those were the two things that I recently made, and now I'm just going to go through my current whips. I literally just had to take this off the blocking board because I was doing like a mid project block to see if it's long enough. But before I get ahead of myself, this is the Lillehammer sweater by Dale Design, which is a really lovely colourwork sweater, I think based off a sweater from, I forget which year it was, when the Olympics was, but it was kind of like an iconic sweater from that kind of period in time. I think there's plenty of like skiers wearing it in the stock images of this pattern, and it is just gorgeous. I haven't gotten to the point yet, but there are some really beautiful kind of, what's the word, kind of like graphic images to do with, I think, Norwegian folklore, which is really cool. I started to make this because I spent about a month in Norway last year, towards the end of last year, and I kept seeing the Lillehammer sweater all around, and I thought it would just be so nice to kind of remember my trip. I could make my own kind of Lillehammer sweater. I'm not using the recommended yarn by Dale Design. I'm still using a Norwegian brand though, because I thought I'm making a Norwegian sweater, I should maybe use a Norwegian brand. So I'm using Sandnes Garn, and I'm using Double Sunday to make this. I think I had a bit of a time figuring out what the gauge should be, because there are, I think, a few different versions of the pattern around. There's kind of the original one, and then the one that I'm using is an English translation because I don't speak Norwegian. I did a little bit of Duolingo, so I can say the most useless phrases like I don't know, the cat eats, but I don't know any Norwegian. So yeah, I'm using the English translation, and the gauge for that is 22 stitches by 27 rows. So I figured DK would be okay for that. So I think, and it seems to be fine, like my gauge is absolutely fine. I don't have actually my swatch up. I think it's in one of my bags somewhere, in one of my project bags. But yeah, it's working up fine so far. I think it's because it's bottom up. So you knit from the bottom, you start at the ribbing and then you just knit up to the body. I'm trying to figure out at what point to break off from this pattern repeat to make the kind of graphic designs, which are in the kind of like, I guess you could call it like kind of jewel or diamond shaped spaces. So I think that's just stopped me so far at the moment, but I think it should be fine. The colours I'm using, I think it is like the white is, I think, 1012, and the blue is 5846. And then the only other double Sunday colour I'm using is the red, which is 4236. And then the other colours are just some kind of stash yarn that I had from previous projects that I've got like a bit more of the yarn left over from. So I think I'm using, I think I've got them here. I've got actually the green from this sweater, which I used Santa's Gone Sunday for. So I'm just holding this double to achieve double Sunday to match the rest of the project. So that's what the green is. And then I think I've literally just got, I think this is Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. So I think it's a little bit thicker than DK. Can't quite remember. And I can't remember the colour, but it's kind of just a pale yellow, which I think is nice. I didn't want a too strong yellow in this, so I think it kind of works out quite nicely. And I think because the yellow is just so little of the project, I don't think the like slight difference in kind of yarn weight will matter too much, hopefully. I think overall it's going well. I think once I've worked the body, I think because you basically work the entire body like one long tube, and then you kind of steek for the arms. I am quite nervous about the steeking. I've never steeked before, but we're going to try something new. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I actually found my swatch, which was actually in my other project bag for the other thing that I'm making, so I might just transition that over actually. But the next thing that I am making is the Honey Bear and Friends scarf by Katharina Kuntz, and it is just the most adorable scarf I have ever seen. I think it is adorable. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I need to wear that. I need to knit it. It is kind of, I think, a nod to Winnie the Pooh, and it's just kind of like a double knit colour work all over scarf with all the little like image figures that you get in Winnie the Pooh. It's so cute. I don't have much to update on it because this is my project so far. This is my scarf. So obviously, one sec. See if I can actually spread it out. Doesn't help that my thumb is out of action at the moment, actually. So you can kind of vaguely see, sorry, you can vaguely see the colour work coming through. And this is how much I've done so far. So basically nothing. I think it really does take a lot of concentration to do the double knitting, but also remember which colour you're supposed to knit first. So I think that has been a bit of a challenge, but I think it's also good for me to knit on some things that are actually making my brain work. I think that's good for my brain to have that kind of stimulation. So, but the only thing is, I think it will probably take me quite a long time to knit this. I think it might take like just knitting off and on for maybe even a year, because I can't knit on this for too long at a time because it makes my brain explode. Let me know if anyone else is knitting a Katharina Kuntz design, or they have, how did you find it? Because I need some reassurance that it's not just me finding this impossible. And it's so impressive that she can knit so many as well. It's just incredible. I love her designs. It's so impressive. And the yarn I'm using is, I think it's La Mana Milano, which is a blend of superfine merino, and which is 90%, and I think 10% is cashmere. So it's a really lovely, like, soft yarn that's just so soft, not itchy at all, which I think is perfect for a scarf that's going to be around your neck all the time. And yeah, that's about it. I don't have much to say because I really haven't done all that much of it so far. I had my first technical glitch of this podcast, but it's fine. Yeah, rites of passage and all that. It's okay. But just got it here. The other thing that I have been working on is my capsule cardigan. So I made a design last year. I made kind of like a summery yellow kind of cardigan, which was really cute. And it was my first time trying to draft my own design. I really wanted very like specifically a kind of round neck, DK kind of weight cardigan, and I found it quite tricky finding a pattern that I was really happy with, because I was being like really fussy. And I think in the past I had kind of seen pattern design as basically like witchcraft, like it just seems so impressive that people come up with that. So I wanted to try and have a go making my own, to try and see if I could figure out how you'd even go about trying to like design a pattern. And I think it went okay. I am really happy with the cardigan as it is, but there are like a couple of things that I think I would have changed looking back. So I am essentially doing that for this cardigan. So the main thing that I've changed is, what have I changed? I've basically mainly just changed the shoulder shaping. So before it was a drop shoulder, but now it's a set-in sleeve. So the actual shoulder here is much shorter, and I've got quite a few increases, like you would for designing a vest for the actual like sleeve. And I'm thinking because of this, I might have to do some German short rows to shape the shoulder. I'm not sure. I think that might make sense to do. And then, yeah, I'm just doing a round neck, as I said. And like with the other one, I'm working just a double knit band, which I really like. I think it looks really lovely and seamless. And yeah, I'm really excited. I am knitting it in Cardiff Cashmere in the shade, I don't have it down there, but I think it's 714 is the shade. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm knitting it with 4mm needles. Not sure if I have much else to say at this point. I do have some buttons actually, which are really exciting. I got these, I think they're mother of pearl red buttons. I'll just show you one of them. They have this kind of, I won't show you with my bad thumb. They have these, you can see this kind of more imperfect speckly side, and then on the other side it's just this lovely like bright red. So I'm leaning towards using this bright red side, but I'm not completely sure. We'll see. I think the last thing you put on, so I have some time before I have to decide that. But yeah, I got this yarn actually. It was when I had a little promotion for my job. I've since quit that job, but it's fine. But yeah, I'm loving it so far. It is so soft and I can't wait to wear it. I think once I make this, it might be something that I literally live in. So I can't wait to wear it. I think people have been talking about being a product versus process knitter, and I feel like I'm somewhere in between. But for this for this project, I'm very much like a product. Like, I can't wait to wear it. And then for future plans, so I've got, I think, two main projects that I am really excited to make. The first one is the Sookie sweater by Woozy by Celine, which is just like the perfect cozy sweater, I think. I can't wait to make it. It's made with worsted weight yarn, and the gauge is 17 stitches and 25 rows. And I think it's, I didn't write it down here, but I think maybe it's 5mm needles or something along those lines. So I don't think it's not like a DK project, it's quite bulky, which is really nice. And it starts at the back panel, which is shaped with short rows, and then you pick up the shoulders and you shape the neck, and then I think you eventually work in the round before making the sleeves. And it says that there is a sleeve cap created with short rows, which will be really interesting, and that the collar I think is double knit stockinette stitch, which I think is really nice. It makes a bit of a change from just doing one by one ribbing, so I'm quite intrigued to see what that will look like. I think it will be really nice. And the thing I'm most excited for with this pattern is the yarn that I'm going to use, because I think I've got it here actually. I really love, I think, Schneffnug by Cama Rose. I made my cloud sweater in it in a candy floss shade, and I have this like gorgeous like lavender shade that I think would just look so cute for this sweater. So I can't wait to wear it. I think maybe I am a product knitter, because I honestly just can't wait to have this on my body. I think it'll be really nice to knit up because the yarn is just so soft, but what I am most excited for is just like being so snuggly in it. But yeah, oh, it's so soft. This yarn is, so it's a blown alpaca again, a bit like Drops Air, but instead of nylon, I think it's 35% organic cotton, 10% merino, and then it's 55% baby alpaca. And the colour is 7358, and it's Lila, I think is how it's pronounced. I'll put it on the screen so you can see the colour in case I butchered the pronunciation. But it is just, it's so pretty. I can't wait to wear it. And then the other thing that I'm like dying to make is the Happy Street Slipover by Kiki, which is just so cute. It is the most like just cutest vest I have ever seen. It's the houses, I just, oh, they're so gorgeous. But before I get ahead of myself, so it's again worsted weight, and it's to achieve the gauge 17 stitches and 24 rows. But apparently you knit it on 4mm needles, which I think will be interesting on how that works. We'll just see how that goes. I feel like yeah, I don't know how that's going to go, but if Kiki says that's what goes, I trust her. I'm sure that's right. But I think it is worked. So it's worked bottom up in 2 panels, and the houses are essentially made with intarsia. So yeah, that makes sense. So you're kind of working the houses as they go, rather than like carrying floats for all of those different coloured houses, which makes a lot of sense. And I'm guessing you then stitch the sides together and then work, I think it is the, what do you call it? Then you work like the ribbing around it, which makes sense. And I honestly can't wait. I think, yeah, the houses are so cute. They really remind me of the houses in Bergen that you see, and all the like beautiful pastel colours as well. So for the houses, I actually have like a big a big bag of different colours. I don't know what colours I'll use yet. I'm thinking kind of quite pastel colours, but I think it would also be kind of fun maybe to make kind of like a rainbow-esque kind of line of houses around. So we'll see which one I end up deciding to do. But I think that would just be so fun. For the background, so for the houses, I think I'm very much going to use up stash yarn. So yarn that I have like spare from other projects, and just yarn that I bought like randomly in my like early knitting days when I didn't really think very sensibly about what I was buying for projects. But the thing that I'm like really struggling with is trying to figure out what background to go for, because I think Kiki's sample is knit in like a basically just like a cream white, which looks really nice, and I think it helps show off the houses. So I'm quite tempted by that. I also think maybe like a sky blue would be really nice. And then my most recent thought was, what about like a kind of cream yarn that's kind of speckled with other colours? Or would that be too much? I'm not sure. So I think that's the main thing that's kind of holding me back from making this at the moment, is just I can't figure out the background. But I will just have to decide at some point. But yeah, and I think Kiki is actually doing a knit along for spring. If any of you want to join, I think it's so her channel is Knits and Bits, and I think she's put it up on Instagram if you want to join. I think the knit along ends in like April, so there's still like plenty of time. I still haven't picked my yarn, so that shows how behind I am. But I think that would be, yeah, I'm really looking forward to actually joining in once I figure out what colour I'm going to do the background. Oh, and I forgot to say, with the yarn for the scrap yarn, they're all in different yarn weights, but what I'm planning to do, because it's worsted weight, is even for like, I think a lot of them are DK, I can probably just kind of hold them together and hopefully meet gauge that way. I think I've also got the odd bit of kind of mohair, but I think it'll be fine. Yeah, that's what I'm telling myself anyway. So that is basically everything I've been getting up to knitting wise. And what I thought I'd do now is kind of go through what I've been reading while I've been knitting. I don't know if anyone else kind of reads a lot while they knit. Do let me know kind of what your setup is. I tend to listen to a lot of audiobooks, and then I also have a Kindle, which I will kind of read as I'm knitting, mainly if it's like stock and net stitch, because I haven't figured out how to do like more complicated stuff and read yet. But yeah, let me know what you think. I haven't figured out how to kind of read a physical book and knit yet. I feel like maybe I could get a book stand. I feel like that might be a way around it. But yeah, if anyone's figured that out, please do let me know, because I'd really like to know, because I like physical books. But yeah, just for context, I did my 2 degrees so far in literature, and I'm planning to potentially, we'll see, do my PhD in literature. So just to say, I do read a lot, and also what I read is quite random. I read all sorts. I will read anything. I'm not fussy. But yeah, so I will read anything from kind of like more contemporary stuff that's being released at the moment to like, I mean, the area that I'm interested in is like Victorian children's literature. So I might randomly pick up like a Victorian serial from a children's publication, one time. So it does vary quite a bit. And I'm also conscious that it's quite a big part of my life. Like I do like take out quite a bit of time to read. So I do get through quite a few books. I think there are like definitely people that read a lot more than I do. But just to say, like, that's the context of whatever goes on in this part of the podcast. I think I think my reading habits are quite weird, but yeah. So what have I been reading? So I've actually listened to quite a few audiobooks at the moment. I tend to listen to audiobooks when I'm knitting, but also if I'm enjoying it, I will just carry on listening to the audiobook. I have no self-restraint, so it will just like I will listen to it while I do anything with my life, whether it's like working or like going to the gym or whatever. So they don't tend to last long if I enjoy them, which is a shame because it would be nice to have them for knitting, but I don't have that self-restraint. But I picked up actually an Ali Hazelwood book, which I had a lot of fun with. I'd previously read her kind of like werewolf paranormal romance things. I think it was Bride and Mate were the two books she did, because I do find metamorphosis in books really interesting. I get a lot of entertainment out of just werewolf fiction in general, and I just couldn't resist reading a book like that written by a neuroscientist, because I think she has some like really interesting, like quite scientific takes on kind of transitions between like two species. I think it was just quite entertaining to read that from kind of her point of view. I hadn't read any of her more kind of like general romance books, and I think she is like mostly well known for her STEM romance books. So I listened to The Love Hypothesis, which I really loved. I also really enjoyed the kind of focus on Olive's career or her PhD alongside the romantic element. I think it added a lot of depth to the story, and I think just generally I really enjoyed the kind of academic environment of it. I think it was quite fun to see more of a STEM side of academia, because I'm very much not a STEM student by any stretch of the imagination. And I really liked biology at school, and it was very much a toss up as to whether I do biology or literature, and I chose the less employable one. Um, but yeah, I think I enjoyed the biology in it as well. And yeah, my favorite quote from it was, "Carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man," which I'm going to take to heart very much so. And then I basically just read the other books in the series then. I think it was Love on the Brain, which I also really enjoyed. And when I say read, I listen to them. And also Love Theoretically. And I really liked the glimpses into their fields, as I said. I think it was neuroscience for Love on the Brain and theoretical physics for Love Theoretically, funnily enough. And my brother does actually study particle physics, so I have read a couple of his like dissertation projects. I don't understand a thing straight over my head, but I feel like some of the references Elsie made to things in her field I at least recognize the name of because of reading those. So that was quite fun to be able to go, oh, I know what a Higgs boson is. I mean, I don't, but I've heard of the word. So that was fun. And then I went on a bit of an Ali Hazelwood streak that I'm kind of still on, I think, to be honest. But I then read Deep End and Not in Love. And I think I didn't love those as much, but I think that is very much a personal preference. I did really like her kind of STEM romance books. I think, though, the aspects of that were still in Deep End and in Not in Love because they were still from kind of a STEM academic background, but it was, I don't know, I think because of the way the stories were written and the purpose of the story, it was very much like their relationship started off quite heavy, but they only really had an emotional connection towards the end of the book. So I think because of that, I didn't really enjoy it as much because I feel like a lot of what I enjoy is that kind of development of relationships as they kind of progress rather than starting off strong and then having that kind of delayed emotional connection. But I think that is very much just a personal preference. It's just what I enjoy reading, to be honest. Oh, and then I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which I think is her young adult book, which I think I really enjoyed it. I think Ali Hazelwood did take, she said, like quite a few liberties when it comes to kind of the dynamics of the chess world and chess as a game. But because I don't know chess super well, those like went straight over my head. I didn't notice them if they were there. So, and I really enjoyed it. I think the character Mel I really resonated with. I won't dwell on why. I really enjoyed the sisters in that. I think they were really funny. And I think, again, just having that kind of emphasis on chess as a major part of the story alongside the romance, I really enjoyed too. I think my faves out of those, I think my least favourite was probably Not in Love, followed by Deep End, and then probably Love on the Brain, and then I think it's probably so hard. I think maybe Check and Mate, and then Love Theoretically, and then The Love Hypothesis. But those like top three I really loved, and I don't know if I necessarily prefer one over the other. But yeah, really enjoyed reading those. I would recommend if you just want like a silly time while you're doing your knitting. Those were really entertaining. I think I've got one more of her books to read, which is Problematic Summer Romance, which I think is the sequel to Not in Love. So I think I still will give that a go, even if I didn't love Not in Love. And I think she's got quite a few like novellas or short stories. So I think I would read those, but I don't think I'm willing to kind of buy a kind of short story or novella as an audiobook because they're quite expensive and you don't get much for the money then. I need to check the prices to see if that's actually true or not, I think. But I think I'd maybe try and buy those, buy the editions, like the physical copies. I'm not sure yet. Yeah. And then I also started Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I have been meaning to read her series in ages. I think since I was a young adult. I am not anymore. I have a physical copy, I think, but I have been like reading on my Kindle when I've been reading and knitting at the same time. And I'm really enjoying the kind of fantastical world at the moment. I think it can be quite chaotic and confusing at times, but I think that is very much because the environment is supposed to be chaotic and confusing because essentially it's these two sisters who end up in a kind of like carnival event that happens every year, and they kind of get lost within the kind of magical elements. One of the sisters goes missing and the other one has to find her, but there's so much going on that she doesn't necessarily understand. So I think because she's constantly like confused, you're of course confused because you're following her around. I haven't finished it yet, but I've just gotten to the point, I think, where it started to really pick up, and I am really enjoying it now. So I think I feel strange recommending something without having finished it, but I think I will enjoy it, so I think I can recommend it. But yeah, that is like mostly what I've been reading while I've been knitting. I thought it kind of made sense to split up the knitting and the reading, but maybe at some point I might intermingle them. I don't know how I'd do that exactly. But yeah, that is my podcast. So thank you so much for sticking to the end, for listening to me ramble about books and knitting. And do let me know like what you're knitting. Do you read while you knit? What are you reading while you knit? Do you listen to audiobooks? How do you like read physical books if you do that? I need to know. But yeah, and feel free to subscribe, like this video. If you didn't like it, please don't dislike it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.